Had a little bit of a glitch. Good evening and welcome to my random evening session. My random evening, call my random evening rant is what we'll call this because it's usually when it's unscheduled like this and it's late at night, but something's on my mind. Yeah, it's usually a rant. But anyway, here we go. It's prepare yourself. Warning. This might be a bit of a touchy topic. And I, okay, let's just dive in. So, today I was going to go do my exercises like I do every day because my body just feels like crap if I don't. So, and I go to, and I have this saved thing in my YouTube, save videos of my favorite workouts. And I know I was headed there. But the first thing I see in my feed is, young girl, or young woman trashes gender affirming care in 5 minutes. And I was like, okay, I'll buy. And so I clicked on it and I heard the whole thing. And I've already heard this woman. She's 19. I've heard her before, on different talk show podcasts or whatever, interviewed by other people. And I already know I'm familiar with her story, and her story is incredibly sad. And I just So I'm an advocate for children. So mostly on this podcast, you'll hear me talk about, how to help with, improve your marriage or have a happy relationship in specifically with marriage or even just helping relationships in general. Yes, but I focus mostly on marriage. But within that too, your children are part of your marriage when you have children. And so sometimes when things don't work out and parents split ways for whatever reason, who suffers? The children always suffer so deeply. And we'll get back to the gender affirming care thing in a second. We're going to loop back around. So just bear with me here. But they suffer so deeply and it's so unfair. Now, I understand that like we can't keep if a relationship isn't going to work out, it's not going to work out, right? Whatever the reasons are. We're not going to get into all that, but for whatever reason you ended up separating, right? But it's the kids that end up bouncing from house to house, and then one parent is telling them, no, you can't do that, no, you can't have a cell phone, and then the other parent is like, well, yeah, you can, so you can communicate with your friends because they have a different belief and a different standard in the whole cell phone thing, right? And sometimes to stick it to the other parent, they do it, right? So like now there's this whole argument over like the kids will come over to the other parent's house with their phones. The phones get taken away, put up on a high shelf, and they don't get them back until they go back to the other parent's house. And that's fine, whatever. They're allowed to do that. But do you see the conflict in the kids? There is no unity. There's nothing. There's chaos. So maybe at one parent's house, a parent cares less whether or not the kid does chores and they do everything. When they go to the other parent's house, the parent's like, you're lazy, get to doing chores, whatever, whatever. Like there's no consistency. And there's so many different rules and things. And the poor kids are just bounced around like ping pong. And not only that, most of the time, what is so infuriating is the parents talk bad about the other parent to the kids or in front of the kids and just horrible person. Oh, well, it's your dad's fault because of la la la, or well, you can thank your mom for that because of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's sad. And the kids maybe love both parents the same. They don't care whether dad likes cell phones or whether mom doesn't, or vice versa. They don't care whether dad prefers, Chinese over pizza and mom prefers pizza over Chinese. If they love both parents, they don't care anything about that. They just want some sanity, consistency, and to know that they're loved despite their parents don't get along. And how you do that is you get along in their presence. You don't talk bad about them. There are certain circumstances to which, for instance, abuse, right? So my sister, and eventually we're gonna get on here and I'm gonna interview her when she's ready for it. Her life is so busy right now, so we'll get to that. But anyway, she recently got out of a horrific, very controlling, very narcissistic relationship marriage. She was married him for 6 years, and finally she was able to leave him, and it was such a relief to all of us, and a relief obviously to her. And she was telling me, like, well, what do I do about my kids? Because my kids don't understand, why I left dad. And I said, you tell your kids, because I say, because he wasn't a good person, right? So I say, you tell your kids, this is how you tell them. You say, look, daddy's not safe right now. Daddy has some some things that aren't quite ticking right in his brain or whatever, just explain it in a way of just like, so daddy's just not safe right now. So that's why we have to take a break from daddy. And then, we'll play it by ear and see if daddy, is able to be safe again. But if it's a person who's just not going to, they're not going to change. They have no intention of anything because maybe they have actual medical, mental issues that need to be like, taken care of by a professional, whatever. Maybe it's bad enough they actually need to be put away, locked, jail or whatever or something. Or if they're just a person that's narcissistic, all about themselves, and they're just out to, find someone to benefit them, then, whatever, then stay away from them. But if there's a person who has problems but are trying to work on them or really trying because they genuinely love, well, then that's another story, right? But this is how you can address that situation with the kids. And maybe your kids already know because they've seen the abuse or they've seen the lies or they've seen all of it, right? And so they already know, yeah, I want out of here with mom, right? So it makes sense. Or maybe the mother's crazy and the father had to leave. It could be the other way around, obviously. So, but in most cases, the parents just didn't get along, couldn't jive, couldn't find a way to jive together, and split up, and were just left angry. They always leave angry. I know a good friend and also a relative who's been going to court for over 10 years fighting for custody battles. And guess what? Every single child is now an adult. They've grown up. They've grown up. And the whole time while they were growing up, their parents were fighting over them. And you know what? They weren't fighting over them necessarily so that they could keep the kids longer. They were fighting over them so that they could just have a one up on the other parent. That's selfish. That's so selfish. I hope as you're hearing me talk, you hear how selfish that is. Most of these kids have gone to therapy, had to go to therapy and try to work things out. Like, it's like there are definitely some major life things that they're affected for life because of how their parents handled the divorce. And that's not fair to the kids. You have to get outside of your selfishness and think about how the kids feel. You need to bite your tongue about your opinions about your ex-spouse in front of your kids all the time. Compliment the other parent to your kids. When it's Father's Day, you say, hey, don't forget to message your dad. Here, use my phone if you don't have a lot of phones or whatever. Um, and tell him happy Father's Day or give him a call and say, happy Father's Day, Dad. And this whole like now there's like scheduled calls, like there will be a parent that maybe has most of the custody or whatever, and then there's scheduled calls for their other parent. Usually that's if the situation was like an abusive type of situation, and that's understandable. And yes, the scheduled calls come into play and all that jazz. But most of the time it's not. And it's like the kids are being bounced around. You have to think about how the kids truly feel. And most of the time, a lot of kids, especially depending on how old or young they are, they feel like it's their fault. They feel like somehow they contributed to why, or they feel like, well, if mom and dad can't love each other, then that means they can't love me either. you have to think about this. This really traumatically, it is traumatic for these kids. It is so traumatic. I've seen it. It is so heartbreaking. I can't stand it. I cannot stand it. And I've seen every single divorce go down in flames and the kids going down with it. It is so sad. Until one of my people that I follow, she's amazing. She's like super inspirational. She helps a lot of women come out of their funk and realize that life is worth living, and you don't have to be a crap show all the time just because you're a mom. It doesn't have to be that way. And I followed her for a couple of years, and then she and her husband announced that they were separating. But they told their story, and they're still like best friends. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be best friends. I'm not telling you be best friends, even if you're split up. I'm not saying that. No, but you can be respectful adults. Be respectful adults. Okay. So, may the person that I follow, her and her husband, they totally like, and for a while they didn't even tell anybody that we're splitting up, not because they were embarrassed, but because they didn't want anybody to come in with their horrible opinions, because the opinions of divorce, and how things go is just so societal, awful, awful. What's the word? Stigma? Stigma, not stigma. I don't know. Okay. Whatever. We're moving on. This horrible thing that divorce brings, and they didn't want anyone to put their plug in it because they have still that very strong family dynamic despite their divorce. In fact, the father moved into another house just next door or down the street from them. They had dinner together every night. I'm not saying you have to do this, I'm just telling you that this is possible. They just weren't jiving, and they just didn't want to be together. And when they announced that they were going to, to their kids, they told them, hey, they held hands while they told their kids, we want you to know that your mom and dad still love each other very much, but we just don't want to be married to each other anymore. We want different things and all that jazz. And then of course their kids started to freak out because they had friends that had divorces that were horrible, and the kids were, suffering badly. And the daughter especially, she's just like, oh my gosh, is this going to be bad? This is going to be bad. And like, no, 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 honey, we love each other. We're not going to be anything like those people that you hear about. Nothing. We are still a family, a strong family. And then the mother looked at the father. I still love your father so much. I just don't love him in that kind of, you know, way anymore of a husband. And then same with the father. He said the same about mother. Anyway, so they, they got unmarried, is what she likes to say, instead of divorce. They got unmarried, and anyway, again, they lived close to each other, and wherever she goes or the kids go, he makes sure he's close, or she makes sure he's close, and they're close, right? They make sure that they are constantly having that family unit. And then when, the mother started dating another guy eventually, and after they'd been split for a couple of years, then that person came into the family fully aware of the dynamic, and everybody just loved him, embraced him, and he's just part of the family. And the ex-husband became best friends with him, and it's just, you see what I mean? They chose not to have drama. They chose that. You can choose that too. You don't have to go down the path of toxicity and like, oh, I have to, in order to have this divorce, I need to be wronged and be a victim and be right. Otherwise, I'm just getting a divorce because I'm selfish. Just stop, okay? It doesn't need to be this way at all, okay? If you're going to split and you just don't like each other and you just can't get along, then great. Hold on a second. I apologize. I'm getting a call from my daughter. I've Okay. Apologize for that. I should have paused it and then read. Anyway, I'm working this thing out. So again, it doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to, you don't have to be best friends, but you can realize that when you decided to separate, you can say to yourself, okay, if in the case he's not a bad person or she's a bad person, they're just someone you just decided not to make it work out, whatever the reason is. Or if there was fidelity or whatever, yes, you could be mad at them, but they've chosen differently. But that doesn't mean you need to ruin your children's lives or your lives. You have to realize, okay, they're human and they've decided to make this choice. Yes, it hurts. Allow yourself to feel the hurt. Allow yourself to process. Allow yourself to go through all the emotions, but don't start a war. Don't start a war. Let's say that somebody cheated on you, right? And you're mad, right? Yes, absolutely. When the kids are around, you let them have it. You tell them what a horrible jerk they are, whatever. You say what you got to say because, yeah, they're in the wrong, right? Well, be adult about it. Don't be childish when you say it. But allow yourself to express. Don't because if you're yelling at them, that's not going to get you anywhere. So my recommendation would be something like, you really hurt me, and let them know the deepest feelings that you are feeling, and maybe even like if it were me, I would bring up like, I've worked so hard to like, I don't understand because you know I put so much into this marriage and then you do this and it hurts. Let them know the depths of your hurt in a calm, you know manner. It could be emotional, you could be crying, right? But don't yell, you know try to keep down the swearing. Don't be ballistic, even though, yeah, obviously that's a hurtful thing, right? And realize after you're able to get it out, work it out, and be like, okay, well, that's when you decide whether or not whether they're planning on coming back or they're planning on, just they want to be with the person that they have now chosen or whatever the case is. If they want to come back, that's up to you whether you not you forget them. You're like, well, no, I don't want to do this. But then you talk about the kids. How do we make the kids not miserable? Let them know, and let, mom or dad say, look, I've made a mistake and I wasn't faithful to your mom and that wasn't okay, and or whatever, or wasn't faithful to your dad and that was okay, whatever, the case may be. And just be like, but I've chosen to go this way, but we're still a family. We're still loving, and we want to make sure, and then make it fair for the kids in whatever way, you know what I mean? Like, hopefully this inspires you down a trail of like, and if you're already out of the divorce and there's still a battle going on, well, stop it right now. Maybe pick up the phone, call your ex, and be like, hey, I'm sorry. I am such a jerk to you. I'm going to stop right now. Let's make a, or text them. Let's make a pact. Let's be good to each other for our kids. Our kids need us to be good to each other. They need us to be good so that they can thrive in life. So they don't have so many problems when they get into their adulthood. So that therapy doesn't have to happen so often. You are traumatizing your kids. You are traumatizing your kids. I'm not gonna sugarcoat anything of this. Okay, I've seen it. It's horrible. Stop it. Stop being selfish. Your kids need you to step up. So step up. All right. Now let's leave this back to this scenario with the whole gender affirming care. I had to give all that because I had to let you know my passion for protecting kids. And another way that you protect your kids is from gender affirming care. This is child abuse, and I will tell you why. When a baby is born, it knows no different. It just born and it's perfect. Babies are born perfect the way they are, absolutely perfect. I've had 6 kids. I've given birth to 6 kids. And when that baby comes out and you hold that baby, they're the most perfect thing in your arms. They are perfect. Boy or girl, female, male, they are perfect just as they were born. And they need to know that because they are impressionable. So when those kids start growing up, and if you're not telling them what gender they were born in, which is either female or male, you are doing a disfavor to them. You are setting them up for child abuse. They need to know who they are because they don't know who they are when they're born. You are their parent. It is your responsibility. They are when my daughter was born, she's a female, she's a daughter, and I wanted to embrace the beauty that she was born into, the beauty of her body and all the different hormones and functions that it was going to come with as a woman, and even some of the trials that was going to happen. And I kept nothing from her. I'm like, you're a girl and you're a beautiful girl. And I it's okay. I was a tomboy when I grew up. I loved baggy pants. I dressed up like a punk rocker. I loved hanging out with the guys, but I still liked being a girl. And yeah, I went through that awkward stage where I was just like embarrassed by some of my femininity, and I didn't and my mom, I love her to death, best mom in the world, but she did not explain menstrual cycles to me at all. I kind of got that from my cousins because she was a little more, she wasn't, it was just her generation. That whole generation was really awkward about sex, really awkward about menstrual cycles. So I didn't know. I didn't know what a period was. And so when I got my period, I was like, oh, because I heard my cousins talking about it because some of my older cousins got it first. And I didn't want to seem stupid and like, you know what a period is, right? And I was just like, yeah, sure. I thought I knew what it was. I had no idea. And then when my period came and I was bleeding, I was like, oh, maybe this is what they were talking about. Is this what a period is? I'm like, didn't know. It's horrible because I didn't know. Anyway, just not a put down on my mom or their generation. It's just that was just what the way it was for them. Is this they didn't like to talk about it. They just didn't. And anyway, so but with my daughter, throughout my whole process, when my period would come, because like kids, when you're in the bathroom, they don't care. And you're in the bathroom with your baby half the time because you gotta go to the bathroom. You gotta poop, right? And so you're like, well, I can't leave my baby out here crying while I'm pooping. So put him in the car seat or grab a pillow and a laundry basket and put him in there so you can poop and shower and take care of yourself. This is reality because you have nobody else to help you out here, okay, when you're alone. This is what you do. And so anyway, so my kids as little toddlers, the bathroom door would be, my nose is running, I've got a little bit of allergies going on, excuse me. Anyway, the bathroom, they just come on in, they don't care, right? And I'm just, mom, while you're trying to do your business. And sometimes I'll be on my period and like, what's that? I'm like, what's what? And I just explain, I'm just like, when you get bigger, this is gonna happen to you too, but it's totally normal. It's kind of a pain, but that's okay. It's part of being a girl. It's part of being a woman. And as I did that, and the more she grows up, and she's, my daughter, she's 11 now, right? She's coming into young womanhood, and she's starting to get those emotional roller coaster we start having it at the same time. I'll start getting like, super irritated a week before my period, like really upset and really depressed and really like, oh, not really depressed. I shouldn't say depressed, really sad. I get really sad and I start doubting myself and everything. And I start looking in the mirror and wishing I had a body paper bag to put over the whole thing. Feel frumpy and fat, and I just want to wear baggy clothes and a hoodie everywhere. You know what I mean? Like it's anyway. But I'll start feeling honoring because she's of that age, and because women naturally start coinciding in their hormones and period if they're live in the same household or they communicate on a regular basis often enough, it'll start to sync your cycle sync with your daughters and stuff. And so my daughter hasn't had her period yet, but the symptoms of a period start coming on first anyway, like the emotional thing. And every time I start getting irritated, she starts getting irritated with me. And we just become like cats to each other. And I'm just like, okay, whoa. And I'm like, Robbie, are you feeling extra irritated and emotional for no reason? And she's like, yes. And I'm like, me too, honey. And then we hug it out. I'm just like, I think my period's coming. Sorry, it's my fault. And she's just like, and so sometimes she'll just come and because she knows, because I've taught her the whole time. Like, this is what happens. It's normal. It's okay. And you can deal with it as long as you make that connection. It helps. So sometimes she'll be feeling like unnecessary, sad for no reason or upset. She'll just come and snuggle with me. She's like, Mom, I just need some extra love. And I'm like, me too. Let's snuggle. So we'll snuggle, right? But can you imagine? Can you imagine if I just didn't tell her about any of this and let her decide who she wanted to be? Imagine the confusion, because the natural chemistry that happens inside of a woman's brain and emotions and cells and everything, the natural puberty that comes on. And if you take puberty blockers, that does severe damage and gives them major health issues in their adult years. It's abuse. That is child abuse. We need to help them embrace who they were born, who not not try to convince them of what they aren't. Help them embrace who they are, who they really are, who they were born into. Not what you want them to be, or their cute little confused minds. I mean, my little boy or my brothers, even when they were younger, we used to dress them up in dresses for fun. We treated them like dolls, or like my little brother Corey, we have pictures of wearing dresses. We're like, oh, he's so cute, And my son Bowen, he thinks pretty dresses are fun to look at. And he even said to me once, he's like, girls love to wear pretty things, and then boys, they like to look at the pretty things. I'm like, that's right, Bowen. And he was able to like separate that. And I'm just like, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there who are absolutely amazing at fashion. Why? Because they like the pretty clothes. They make beautiful clothes for women because they like the pretty clothes. And that's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you feminine. It doesn't make you a girl. It just makes you have an interest that is generally a girl's interest. Nothing bad about that. There are girls out there that generally football is a man's sport, right? Generally it is, because it's just very full of testosterone. But some girls are attracted to football and they're like, yeah, I want to do that. That sounds awesome and tough, and I want to be tough. That doesn't make you a boy. It just makes you interested in a dominant boy sport. And there's nothing wrong with that. You can encourage that, but don't encourage them to be something or someone they're not. That's when you step the line of abuse. Don't do it. It's not okay. This young girl's life is ruined. The 19-year-old girl in this YouTube video, her life is ruined. And she has a lot of health problems, back pain and everything, because of the puberty blockers. Certain things pop, hips pop, knees pop, whatever, back pops. She has pain because of the puberty blockers, because she tried to block who she was. If you're a mom, you're going to understand this. When you have children, or anyone, when you have children and you put your whole self into those children, and you put yourself into your children's agenda and your husband's agenda, and then you forget your own agenda and you're not doing anything for yourself, you lose yourself. You are suppressing yourself. When you just go along, when you become masochist and you just go along with flow just to keep peace or to make somebody else happy, and you sacrifice your own self, you are suppressing yourself. Eventually that's just going to come blowing out, right? And your body feels it. You feel it mentally, emotionally, and physically. Start feeling, maybe you start gaining weight and you start feeling grumpy. You start feeling, sick a lot because you're suppressing yourself. That is what gender affirming care does. It suppresses kids on who they really are, and then it hurts them physically for the rest of their life and mentally. They don't need gender affirming care when they're having confusion, when they're confused. They need a loving parent to hug them and say, this is normal to go through these phases. It's okay. I went through them too. Or I went through it in a different way. Or it's okay. I'll help you through this. It's okay. It's okay. Right? That's what they need. Step up be there for them, protect our children. And anything that is advertising gender affirming care needs to be fined. Any doctor that is promoting gender affirming care, any facility needs to be jailed, fined, and put down. Needs to be absolutely that needs to be abolished. Absolutely abolished, because it is child abuse. It is child abuse, child abuse, child abuse. I don't care if you have a medical record, you do not know what you're talking about. You have the wrong information. Stand up for our children. Be kind to one another in front of our children. Let's save our children, because our children are our future. Okay? The children are our future. Let's treat them like they are. Let's give them the best shot they have. All right. Hope you have a great night. Rock on.